Hello, welcome. You are watching Insight, the premier news show here on Raw 12:51 a.m. I am your head of news, Enoch, and I'm here to bring you an hour of Warwick Students discussing the biggest stories both on and off campus. In our headlines today, White House down, Donald Trump has coronavirus, as do many of his fellow White House officials. What does this mean for America? Who's governing the country? Do we think we're recovering time for the election? All this and more in the next hour. Coronavirus case count corrupted by a computer. The government has said that over 16,000 coronavirus cases weren't properly counted and added or tested and traced because of a computer failure due to the use of Microsoft Excel. We're going to be exploring what this means for the government's attempts to combat the coronavirus, like I said, in the next hour. And of course, Freshers Week, successful failure. Warwick has received both plaudits and fierce opposition for their choice to have Freshers Week entirely online. Do we think that's worked out well? Looking at other universities and their choice to have in-person events, but now seeing rising coronavirus cases, or do you think there was a mistake and we should have had in-person events? We've sent to get here to discuss that issue, and also we want to hear from you. Please tell us what you think about that. But now it's time to my wonderful, wonderful panel, starting with Noah Keate. Noah, hello.
Hi, Enoch.
Hello, Noah. No, sorry.
I was going to say, obviously, it's brilliant to be back on Insight. I always enjoy commenting on the news. And I remember being on the show last Monday, which seems so long ago, and the main story was that New York Times exclusive about Trump's tax returns or lack of tax returns. And it's just remarkable to think that was only a week ago, and everything that has or hasn't happened since, like the debate and, of course, Trump catching coronavirus. So, as I say, it makes me slightly excited as a sort of aspiring journalist, but terrified as a citizen for what will be on the show this time next week.
Yeah, because I mean, we literally last week we were sort of sitting around being like, "Wow, this changes everything." The whole race is when he flipped over. Donald Trump's tax returns have come out.
It's been forgotten now. It's remarkable.
Yeah. New York Times is like, we're gonna have more releases soon. Now, obviously, that's all been washed away by the true October surprise of Donald Trump taking himself out, essentially.
It is remarkable. You just have to laugh. There's always the October surprise before the election, but I think coronavirus was just a 2020 surprise, given it really began at the end of December, early this year. And we always knew it was going to have an impact in terms of delaying the election. But now I don't think the election will be delayed. But it is unsurprising, really, that it has such an impact this close to polling day, which is only a few weeks away now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk more about Trump coronavirus in a second. At first, I want to go from one of our more regulars on this show to a newcomer, Edwin Chan. Hello, Edwin. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Enoch. Thank you for inviting me.
So, this is your first time on Insight, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're looking forward to it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm actually excited. Obviously, I have been following Raw and all the Warwick News website for the last year, and so great to be on the show now.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on, Edwin. We also have our head of training, Joshua Gray. Joshua, hello.
Hiya. Hello. As just a disclaimer, my internet is going in and out, so if I have any issues, I terribly apologise in advance.
Oh, no, it's Joshua. It's a pleasure to have you anyway. Also, we're very lucky to have you because I say lucky in a sort of a very cautious way, because obviously you were supposed to be at work this evening, but you're currently isolating at home. And his internet is in fact gone. So I will answer a question. Yeah, Joshua had a roommate.
He's quite literally isolating now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Can we hear him?
Yes, I'm just. Are we back?
Yes, Joshua. Yes, you are back. You are back.
This is annoying.
So, yeah.
Okay. So one of my housemates. Yeah. So I'm currently. Yeah, one of my housemates was in contact with someone who turned out to be positive. So we're just waiting for results to see what happens, really.
Yeah. And last but obviously not least, we have one of Raw's most, Raw News is one of the most tenured hosts, Johnny Jenkins. Johnny, hello.
Hi, Enoch. How you doing?
I'm good, Johnny. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Just sort of plodding along. Have our first lectures today. Did one of them in bed. I'm quite enjoying this online learning.
You're living your best online learning life, I have to say. Also, can I just say I love your background?
I've got the big old screen there now, haven't I? So I can put anything on there. I mean, I'm being sensible today, but maybe a few weeks down the line, I'll put some random things, flush them up on there.
So maybe for our last show online, you can bring out whatever you want, and we'll go crazy.
I'll hold you to that. I will.
And Sean Bolton says, "Love the logo, Johnny," and Sean, so do we. And Hannah Keate says, "Is watching." So Hannah, welcome. Thank you for watching the show. All right, so to turn from light news, something slightly darker. White House down. As we said, Donald Trump has coronavirus. Panel, I want to get, what were your first reactions when you heard this news? Edwin, I'll come to you first.
Obviously shocked. That's the first October surprise that we get for this election. We were always expecting some sort of surprise in October, whether it's on diplomacy or it's on domestic affairs. There's always going to be some surprise, but no one would have expected that the surprise actually is him, Donald Trump himself, getting infected. And luckily he's recovering well, and I didn't think it would have a serious impact on the election as for now, and we just have to keep a close eye on that.
Noah, would you agree?
Yeah, I remember waking up to the news on Friday, and actually I was extremely unsurprised, because I think we'd seen in the UK that obviously Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock had both had coronavirus, and it just showed that anyone, regardless of how powerful you were, could succumb or could be, exposed to the infection. So I wasn't actually very surprised that Trump had got it, given he was doing all these rallies indoors, not promoting mask wearing. Indeed, in his debate on Wednesday morning with Joe Biden, he'd actively mocked Joe Biden for wearing such a large mask on other occasions. So actually, given how much Trump seemed to wish to put coronavirus behind him and behind America as an issue, even though it's killed over 200,000 people in America, it didn't surprise me at all. And the first thing I thought was, well, we have to look at his age. He's 74, he's heavily overweight, and he really was in the vulnerable category for coronavirus potentially being fatal. And obviously we saw that when he had to be on oxygen, steroids, and transferred to a medical unit.
Yeah, no, you sort of raised a good point there. It's a lot of the commentary we've seen around this has started to happen the idea that this was almost inevitable. After a year of Donald Trump sort of dismissing coronavirus, not taking it very seriously, mocking Joe Biden for wearing masks, some people said he wanted to brought this upon himself. Would you agree with that, Johnny? I'll come to you.
If someone doesn't take coronavirus seriously and then they get coronavirus, it's not the biggest shock in the world. Although you sort of do see these people, these world leaders, as, dare I say, invincible. So I found out about the news on Friday morning. My alarm is the radio, so it buzzed and it said, "Good morning. The time is," I won't say what time I got up because I've been out for drinks the night before, so it was a bit late. The time is, and Donald Trump has coronavirus. And I was shocked. I'll tell you, it woke me up. It really did. And then I started thinking, Boris Johnson, when he had coronavirus, they told us that he was, in good spirits, that he was okay, that he was isolating. And they pretty much said he's great, he's doing fine, until at the point they put him into intensive care. So I was really, I suppose, quite concerned at that point. And I think that Boris Johnson getting coronavirus all those months ago was such a big turning point in our country's battle, if I can call it that, with coronavirus. It made a lot of people take it more seriously. And I just sort of hope that this shock to America and this shock to the White House is going to get people to take it more seriously. And I worry that it won't. I really do. That morning when Boris Johnson, or maybe it was the afternoon, when Boris Johnson got coronavirus, I was just sat there writing an essay. It was all those months ago. Within minutes, I was on the radio talking about it. And I remember how shocked I was at the time. And I think that shock was pretty much equaled when I heard about Trump.
Yeah, let's break down the timeline of Trump's sort of the reported timeline from the official timeline, so to speak. According to the White House, Trump first showed symptoms on Thursday, was tested that night, and then on Friday morning he was confirmed to be positive. By Friday evening, he was in hospital, precautionarily, as they say, and then we don't know what. And he was also given a certain amount of treatments, and that's all we know so far. But yesterday, or was it Saturday? Trump's office came out and they made a press briefing, which suggests that Trump may have known earlier and been tested earlier that he was coronavirus positive as early as Wednesday, the day after the debate. So I want to come to you first. Should we trust the White House official version of events? Edwin, I'll come to you.
I think we should, because obviously they're the only credible source regarding things happening within the White House. Whether the timing was wrong or not, I think you just have to trust them with that, because there's too many conspiracy theories out there at the moment, and I don't want to say whether it is Thursday or Friday wouldn't make a huge difference. It does make a difference, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's any reason why the White House would deliberately try to hide the fact that he had a test on Thursday or Wednesday and try to delay to announce it publicly, because there wasn't any presidential debate or any rally that was scheduled to happen on Thursday or Friday anyway. So I wouldn't read too much into it. Maybe it's just a delay because for national security reason or for whatever reason, but I certainly won't read too much into that.
Oh, I mean, Edwin, just to push back on what you said, though, there was a rally scheduled. In fact, Donald Trump went to a rally on Wednesday, where he was in contact. He went to set a fundraising meeting and a rally, so where he could have exposed people if he was already tested positive.
Yeah. The thing is, I still think the White House press office will be trustworthy, because it's at the end of the day, it's difficult for us to prove that whether the press office lied or not. It's at the end of the day, it's down to the credibility of this government, and obviously there is a question whether the whole executive, the whole presidency is credible at the moment. I think that's why people are questioning it. Personally, I would say I trust that fact that he was only tested on Thursday. Now, unless there's concrete evidence or there's leaked a credible source from within the White House suggesting that he was tested earlier and the press office did try to delay it for whatever reason, then I think we should still trust the press office at the moment, just because there have been so many conspiracy theories and fake news out there.
Well, I mean, the credible source we have saying was earlier is Trump's own doctors who gave a timeline. I mean, Johnny, I'll come to you. What do you think about this?
Well, they came out very quickly afterwards and said that they misspoke, and I know that's something this White House like to say quite a lot. And that doctor, who, I mean, I don't know if you saw this press conference, but it was absolutely extraordinary. This doctor came out and he was, the only way I could describe him was smarmy. He really was. And he was a bit like Anthony Scaramucci in his sort of, hey guys, it's all going to be fine, don't worry. And then that was pretty much it. And then he did this whole 72 hours or 48 hours thing. And they came out and corrected this pretty quickly. And said that basically he misspoke and he meant to say 3 days or 2 days or whatever. I do agree with Edwin, though. What evidence have we got? I know the doctors come out and said this, but then they've directly counteracted it pretty quickly. And these doctors are going to be under a lot of pressure. So I'd say whether he had it on that day or not, that's not too much of my concern. My wider concern is how this White House just hasn't taken it seriously all along. You've only got to go onto their website and things and see all their pictures from the past few weeks and see hundreds of people all there sat next to each other without wearing masks. Sure, they're outside a lot of the time, and that is Donald Trump's excuse quite a lot of the time, but they're still out there maybe spreading the virus. And it does seem that the White House, be it out in the garden or inside, is a bit of a super spreader location for this virus.
Oh, I mean, let's pick up on that. Do we think this is now going to cause Republicans to take coronavirus more seriously? No, I'll come to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to think that it would. It's been clear that you haven't really seen attitudes to coronavirus split down party lines, with Democrats like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi being more serious and more cautious in how they get involved in campaigning and their attitude to the pandemic. And it's shocking, really, that while we should question government and should question what they do, there has been such a split for coronavirus and how to tackle it properly. But I think lots of the attitude since Trump got the coronavirus has been based around his image. Every campaign team of every leader will always spin in a way that their leader is doing well, they're in good spirits, they're strong and they're stable, as one leader famously said, even if that isn't really the case. And so I think we saw Donald Trump, trying to present that things weren't too serious until it became clear that he needed to be transferred to a medical centre. And that was why there was this ambiguity over whether he needed oxygen at all, whether he needed steroids. And given his age and weight, it was probably clear that he would need them more. But I think a lot of this coronavirus will have changed our attitude towards Donald Trump, really, because for a lot of his supporters, his image is of being, a strong man. His populist rhetoric is based on being a leader that will take America forward, that will make it great again and reform the system. And clearly, coronavirus has not shown him to be a strong man at all. So I think it will have a big impact both on his physical health, assuming he gets through it, and I hope he does, but also on his political message too, about whether he really is the leader to take America forward and whether he is physically fit to be president.
Josh, I'll ask you the same question.
I think there's a sense saying, yes, that's some of the more liberal end of the Republican Party will definitely take this more seriously. But if we're going to talk about the Republican Party as a whole, I think it's probably best to say this won't change things too much. If we're going to look at Trump himself, I've been seeing BBC report headlines today saying that he now apparently understands the virus now that he's finally got it. And I just make the case saying, well, we've had over 7 million cases in America, nearly 250,000 deaths, and only now when it actually affects him does he actually understand the weight of the situation. And even then, I think when he does recover, because I think he's got the best healthcare in the world right now as the president himself, him and the Republican Party possibly could spin it saying, look, going back to the old argument at the start of the pandemic, saying, oh, it's just a slightly stronger cold. Look at me, I survived it. It's not much of an issue. The Republicans can obviously spin it if and when, in my opinion, Trump comes back out of self-isolation.
Yeah. And now, you obviously mentioned Trump. Now, you mentioned Trump survived. There's obviously been a lot of question whether or not Trump will survive this issue. As he said, he's in a sort of group with lots of commodities around this issue. This raises a question: is it correct that we have, in the most powerful country in the world, the powerful man in the world is such a person, so vulnerable to disease? Like, Johnny, I'll come to you.
Well, it's him in the next month, or Joe Biden, who's even older and even more frail. So I don't think we have an option here at this point. But he is 74, which, the older you get, the more likely you are, to die from the virus. He's overweight, which is a big problem. He's also a man. 8 out of 10 deaths in America from corona have been amongst men. So that's a big factor here as well. It does seem he's getting better. He keeps dragging video photographers into his room, and I hope they are masked up, and I hope they are, in hazmat suits, because this man is contagious, and he keeps dragging them in to film videos to say, all good, see you soon, vote Republican. And he keeps doing that. And then he did this weird, did you see this, Enoch? This weird thing where he drove by all of his supporters who obviously have been out there like camping out, vote Trump, all of this. And he, in an enclosed space, a space that is the most secure car in the world. Nothing else can get in or out. So here he is with this coronavirus. I think he was wearing a mask, but still, they still get around. And then you've got a driver and the secrets. And they're probably going to have to isolate now. He just keeps dragging these people out. I know the world revolves around him. He is President Trump. But he really needs to take a look at himself and say, I need to rest. Look after my own health, look after the people around me, because they're dropping like flies. They're all getting coronavirus in the White House. And just in the last hour, we've seen the press secretary's got it. The press secretary that spoke to reporters in the past couple of days and refused to wear a mask because she tests negative that day. That doesn't mean you're safe. It's such a worry.
Yeah. I mean, Edwin, I'll put the same question to you. What do you think about what Johnny said?
I think he's absolutely correct on how Trump has handled the virus situation. Not even when he finally got it, but also before, because he had so many warnings and so many close calls. So if I don't know if you guys remember, but a few months ago when the Brazilian president Bolsonaro, he visited the White House, then days later when he returned to Brazil, he was tested positive, and that already raised an alarm in the White House, and they got Pence and Trump tested immediately. And fortunately, that at that time, no one was tested positive. But they should have been more alerted, and they should have learned from that experience. So, firstly, all the way up to the point that he actually got the virus, the White House and probably himself as well have been handling the situation pretty poorly, to be honest. And secondly, after he was sent to hospital, I do understand this is the most unfortunate time to catch the virus and have to self-isolate, because the election is less than a month away, and he is a campaigner. He loves big rallies, and he needs them to win the voters, to win the key states. But it's a bit selfish, and it's also not. It's not even his best option for him to keep coming out and doing the show. Maybe a better option will be letting Pence running things for a week, because what we have seen so far, at least according to all the polls, are suggesting that people people don't like Trump that much. And there is a poll, I think it's by Reuters and Ipsos, just came out this morning. 50% of more than 50% of the American population believe that if Trump had handled the virus better, he wouldn't have got it. So this is there's clear evidence showing that Trump maybe should lay back and, do a Joe Biden, hide from public for 2 weeks instead of keep coming out. I know that he thinks that it's important for his campaign, but in my point of view, I don't think that's his best option, both for the campaign and for the people around him as well, because that obviously exposed them to significant health risk.
Oh. I mean, you've brought the election, so let's wind the story down there. How is this going to affect the election? Johnny, I'll start with you.
Well, it's not. The election's going to go ahead. Loads of people have already voted in their fraudulent mail-in voting, and they've voted with the name Donald Trump on the ballot paper. Not Mike Pence, nobody else. Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And that's who they've voted for or not voted for. So you can't go around changing the election. The election takes place, and that's the bottom line of it. In terms of how people will vote, and those people that haven't voted yet, I don't know if it would change many minds. Of course, everyone wants him to get better, but maybe there's a bit of someone that's somewhere in the middle that maybe is a bit more sympathetic now and thinks, because there is this sympathy element of, I feel a bit sorry for Donald Trump, I'm gonna give him a little vote. Maybe we'll see that, but I don't think it will affect things too much. I think he'll storm ahead and get in the White House again.
Yeah, okay. Now I'll come to you.
Yeah, I agree with Johnny that I think Trump will get re-elected, despite what the polls are showing with Joe Biden ahead. I think he still could be victorious, not least among his base. I really hope that he doesn't win re-election, but I think it is a really real possibility. And especially when Johnny was referring to President Trump going into that vehicle, the safest vehicle in the world that's bulletproof and chemical attack proof. To me, it just shows how shallow, self-centered, selfish, and narcissistic this president is, because it's entirely based on his image and his support among his fans and making them feel good. And that was most evident in Bob Woodward's latest book, Rage, where he the president explicitly told Bob Woodward that he knew how serious the virus was back in February or March, but didn't want to alarm American voters. And so therefore in public he deliberately underplayed its severity, which clearly may have led to more deaths. We don't know, it's just a hypothetical exercise, but clearly if he'd been more upfront about how serious it was, people may have taken it more seriously. So I think Trump certainly doesn't deserve our sympathy. He doesn't deserve to win re-election, but I think it will still happen come November.
Yeah. Edwin?
Yeah, I do agree. Trump, it's very likely to win the election, even before he got corona. I think getting the virus might actually even boost his chance even further. So I think there are a couple of things to look out for. Firstly, it's the second presidential debate that it's scheduled on 15th, I think, or the 16th. That's basically not going to, well, it cannot happen in person because Trump will have to self-isolate for 14 days or will have to be isolated for longer than that anyway. Then obviously, because it's Trump, he's not going to skip the debate. He would probably offer to do it virtually. And one of his biggest card will be, look, I'm this ill, I'm in hospital, I'm still doing this debate, I'm still doing it better than Joe Biden. Obviously, that's going to help to win some of the voters. But is that going to have a significant impact? Not sure, because I think most voters, obviously, both those who have voted already and those who are going to vote on a day have probably decided their minds anyway. This is one of the most divided election in America ever. So many people have already made their mind up way back in summer or maybe even back in 2016. So I don't think that will have a huge impact on the election. The second key factor will be the VP debate on the 7th, which is this Wednesday. Now, originally that was supposed to be a test for Kamala Harris because Biden was so old and everyone worried. Well, there is a question of touch wood, if Biden passes away or cannot fulfill his duty anymore, then obviously Kamala Harris will have to step up. So that was supposed to be a test for Kamala Harris to see whether she is presidential enough. Now Trump is the one that is actually getting the virus, and he is the biggest health concern right now. That will also be a key test for Pence as well. So if Pence performs well on Wednesday, that might actually help the Trump campaign to win loads of votes, especially among people who are worried about two old men getting ill and not capable of doing the duty anymore, and worry about who is going to step up and replace them. Now, in that sense, I do think Pence currently does have an edge over Kamala Harris simply because he has been more. He is seen as more stable, more presidential, sort of like a Bush senior figure within the Republicans. So maybe if Pence performs well on Wednesday, that would give a boost to the Trump campaign. But again, it won't be anything significant. It won't be game-changing. I think it is done and dusted for now. Trump is going to win the election. It's just the question is, how far is the margin?
Yep. And Josh?
Well, as we see, the pattern here is that Trump's winning. Now, I would love to turn the tide and say I would think that Biden's going to win. Logic should tell me that, considering that this year itself should be, considering that coronavirus in itself, he has overseen 250,000 deaths within his own country over his own negligence, and then also the reactions from George Floyd's murder and the Black Lives Matter movement, and seeing how Trump and his administration reacted to that. Just by how logic would dictate everything, just by logic, you would think, oh yes, Biden should win because Trump has shown himself to be an incompetent president at best. But I can't say Biden due to what we saw in 2016. We all said Clinton would win because Trump is incompetent. It's the same argument this time. You will say Biden because Trump's incompetent, and he's shown it this time. But again, Trump has such a solid base within his voting. Within the votes, he has a base of people that will never stray from him. And then there are also swing voters who will think, I don't really think Biden's the right person for it. I'm going to go for Trump, therefore. And also another factor to take into account is that when it comes to presidential elections, it's not common to see an incumbent president lose a re-election. I mean, 2022 election, but it's not something that you see that commonly. And because of the way that Trump is able to almost like dodge every single criticism that would have taken out any other president, that he just dodges it every week, I think that Trump will win again.
Well, a very united panel on that point.
Sorry, can I just respond to that?
I really wish you could, but we have to get on to the next story of the day if we're going to get through the news show at all. Right, so coronavirus case count corrupted by a computer. Try saying that 3 times fast. Johnny, I'm going to come to you. If you have an explanation of what exactly is going on here.
Yeah, so the cases of coronavirus have slowly been rising over the past few weeks, and it's prompted quite a lot of concern. And yesterday, and the day before actually as well, we didn't quite get the case numbers when we normally get them, which is about 4 p.m. And there was a bit of confusion. Why haven't we got these yet? Maybe something's gone wrong, or maybe we're going to see a Norman's figure. What we saw yesterday was a coronavirus figure of around 22,000 cases, which is significantly higher, significantly higher than we have seen before. We were then told that 15,841 of those cases were cases that have been lost from the daily counts recently. How were they being lost? Because the company which is running this test and trace system, Serco, is using not some sophisticated computer solution technology that you'd expect them to. No, they're running this on Microsoft Excel. And that's where they're running the test and trace system from. And through that, they lost 15,841 cases. And then yesterday's figures were around 7,000 per day. And then we see today's figures, which came out this afternoon, of 12,594 new cases. That is just today. Now, I'm hoping there's some lost cases in that number as well, because it's extortionately high and it has a lot to raise concern. And on the topic of cases, I've just as we came on air, Enoch, seen a story from the board this afternoon of cases on campus. So today, the University of Warwick has confirmed that there are 26 active cases of COVID among staff and students. 16 of those cases are on campus in halls, in accommodation, and 10 are off campus, be that in Leamington or Coventry or wherever. So 26 active cases, and I think that means people who are currently in that process of isolating after testing positive from Warwick. But going back to this wider point about these 12,800 cases being lost. Now, you know, whether we have the actual numbers or not right now isn't the biggest issue. The bigger issue is that the test and trace system, which connects your web of who you've seen, who you've been near, and tells them to isolate, and then you know, all the people you've been close to. The whole point of keeping the virus under control is that this works well. These 15,000 people haven't had their contacts traced. So say each person has, I don't know, 3 contacts. We're talking about 45,000 people here who should have been isolating and haven't been, and may well be contagious.
I mean, I also have to be neutral, but even just hearing that's sort of staggering for me. Panel, what's your reactions? Josh, I'll come to you first. As someone's currently self-isolating, what does it make you feel hearing this?
Absolutely disgusted that even the figure as high as this could have been lost by simply having an out-of-date Excel spreadsheet format. I'm sorry, this is a test and trace system put in by the government. They should surely have the most updated format of Microsoft Excel for a spreadsheet. How do you lose that many people's tracing? It is unacceptable, completely unacceptable. And it's actually, in my opinion, I'm sick and tired of mistake after mistake coming through from this government and their policies, and I'm finished with them. It is just nothing. I understand that people are going to come up with counter arguments saying it could have been worse. Oh, you know, you couldn't have predicted this to happen. It doesn't matter in that case. The fact of the matter is that this sort of figure here is just emblematic, in my opinion, of the government's shoddy policy towards the pandemic, even after Theresa May had her speech back in last year saying that this government wasn't ready for a pandemic. And what did the government do? They did nothing about it. And now we're in a pandemic. And that's just my main argument. But then this adds to it, that you can lose this many people from a government-sponsored test and trace system. It is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. No, I'll come to you. Anything you want to say in response to that?
It really is remarkable, really. I think I always wanted to give the government, particularly at the start of the pandemic back in March, a bit of the benefit of the doubt, because I thought, while a pandemic had been listed for a while and the Cabinet Office is one of the key threats facing the UK, the threat of it and actually having to face it in reality are two very different things. So I'd always wanted to be, critical of the government, but sort of constructive criticism in dealing with something that really is unprecedented compared to things like Ebola and foot and mouth, sort of 10, 20 years ago, which in reality are nothing. But it does get to the point where you have so many mistakes after mistakes that the benefit of the doubt just suddenly begins to go away. And I think this is just further example of it. I remember earlier we were talking about how leaders are presented as almost being invincible, even if they're clearly not. And I think that's the same with believing in how the state operates. You assume that those that are in charge, those that are in Whitehall, those that are the civil servants know something we don't and are competent and know what they're doing. Well, this clearly isn't the case. They're using an outdated system of Microsoft Excel. It is something that would be fit very well on the thick of it, a program that I loved watching last year. I mean, you wish it was a comedy, you wish it wasn't real, but the reality is it is real, and it is real people's lives. Even if these 15,000 people have been told to isolate, the fact that the people that they would have, associated with, mingled with, mingling, which is now apparently illegal, haven't been told themselves to self-isolate, would have been really damaging. And that is the way to get out of lockdown. Testing and tracing is the way to do that, to allow a sort of semblance of normality to take place while those who are specifically affected try to self-isolate. So it really is shocking, and I'd just like to hope that this independent inquiry, we don't know what structure it will take, that will occur after the height of the pandemic, when it does take place, ensures that both departments and individuals that are responsible for errors like these are held to account, to ensure that, if possible, mistakes aren't repeated again in future pandemics.
This actually isn't the first mistake we've seen made with the Test and Trace app. A mistake. The biggest issue we've seen so far before was that it didn't work on an older generation of mobile devices like an iPhone 6. Do we think the government doesn't have the tech infrastructure to really run its operation like this? John, I'll come to you before, so I'll start with Edwin, and I'll come back to you. Edwin.
Muted,
you have to unmute yourself, Edwin.
I'm sorry. I'm not an expert in technology, but I do think this is getting out of hand. It's absolutely unacceptable that they're making such a huge mistake. Talking about the test and trace scheme, the app or the whole system, if the government don't know how to do it, if there aren't enough people around to give them the advice or to actually build the system, well, they could have turned to Germany, could have turned to Switzerland, to Italy. Systems, the test and trace system, the app, everything is working fine in those countries. If the government realized that the UK system isn't perfect and they don't know how to get problems sorted, then they could have asked for the help from our European neighbours. I do agree with Noah on the point of giving the government benefit of doubt, at least at the beginning of the pandemic, but they had more than half a year now to come up with a proper response and a proper contingency plan. And frankly, Boris Johnson has been comparing this pandemic with the Great Wars in the last century. If he's making the analogy, then I do think that the government response to the second wave has been the equivalent of a Gallipoli back in World War I. It's a complete disaster. They have been inconsistent with all the lockdown measures. There's a huge problem with the app. Test and tracing is failing, and now even a statistical error. No, it just come to a point that I think the government has been given enough time and enough benefit of doubts that they actually have to sort themselves out and get it working. If they can't find the right people to do that, then perhaps it's time to turn to our European neighbours. I know the Brexit negotiation is ongoing, but this is a matter of life. I don't think the Brexit problem or the politics should be the priority right now. Just go and ask Germany, go and ask Switzerland, go and ask Italy how they have done it. Maybe just copy the system. It worked there. It should work in the UK. So, it's actually very disappointing to see what they have been doing in the last month.
Yeah. Johnny, you are our coronavirus expert. I mean, you've produced a documentary about it for a radio station. So I'm going to come to you for a final word on this. Why aren't we ready with this technology if we can see so many other countries are ahead of us?
Well, the government says it's done a wonderful job. So there we are. Conversation post. No, they wanted this app, and this app is the thing that keeps coming up again. And I'll tell you what, we've got it now, and it is a really good app. And I think it's brilliant. When you go around, you can scan the barcode, saves you writing it down, and it seems to me to be working fine now. Except that I woke up this morning with a notification, and I now know a lot of people have had this, saying that you have been near coronavirus exposure. And of course, you go, 2 weeks, I've got that food. And then you click on it and nothing happens. And this is a bug that a lot of people have experienced, and it's not actually real. So that's a big concern. That's my main problem with the app at the moment. But in terms of the rest of it, it all seems to be okay. We were told, though, months ago that we were going to have an app. And we're talking, I think it was April, we were told we were going to have an app, and it was going to be trialed on the Isle of Wight. And then it was all going to be fine. And then we didn't hear much. I was thinking, Matt Hancock, you okay? How's the app going? And then he said that we had 2 apps. And one was really good at location, but not at privacy. And one was really good at privacy, but not location. And they needed them to work together. And as Edwin says, other countries seem to have found how to get this to work. I don't know why it's taken so long. Matt Hancock is an app expert. He's an app expert, if I can say. He used to have an app. I don't know if it's still there. He made his own app, didn't he, called Matt Hancock? Yeah. And you open it and say, "Hi, I'm Matt Hancock." That was when he was Minister for Digital and Culture, so that makes a bit more sense. But it really isn't on that there seem to be so many problems. Now, the app now seems to be sorted, but the fact they're using Excel in the first place, let alone an out-of-date Excel, I just don't think is good enough. This is something that is designed for year 7s and 8s in school to make colourful charts that change colour depending on what numbers you put in. This isn't designed for a private company, Serco, and I've got no problem with a private company running the test and trace system as long as they run it well. Private company Serco, who are just running it so poorly, and it just doesn't seem to be working. And I don't know why. You have to ask the government that one.
Yeah, and I think that'll be like the last note on this very troubling story. We're now going to turn to another example of online failure, or perhaps not, Freshers Week, success or failure. Now, everyone here at Warwick will know that Freshers Week this week was all online. Society's Fair was online, all the events were online. Everything was possible could move online was moved online. In contrast to other universities who had to try to have as much in-person events as they could. I want to start with you, John, because I know you have to leave very soon. As the society exec and as a member of Warwick University, do you think online Freshers Week has worked?
No, it was rubbish. It was non-existent. So as you say, I'm an exec member on the Politics Society, and if you're a fresher watching this, hi, come and join. It was brilliant. We met people on campus, and we got told off a little bit on the first day for doing this. So we arranged for 3 of us at a time to go with masks, obviously, and then we could speak to 3 other people at a time that were interested, and we had a lot of interest. And then we'd be staying in the rule of 6, and we did that Monday through Wednesday last week, and it was nice. And it was nice to speak to people and see them. But the thing I noticed so much is that these freshers were just so grateful to talk to a human being. That's because they can't outside their flat. And I think, sure, they can have great bonds with their flat by now, but it didn't really seem to work. And as for the sort of social side of Freshers Week, I don't suppose it worked very well, because they were holding these sort of like online DJ sessions. And they're just, I'm not going to sit here like at my desk, DJing, like, am I? It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to, I think what probably happens, not quite to the extent we saw in Coventry where we saw 200 young people gather. I think what we probably took place last week is the flat next door said, should we have a bit of a gathering? Should we get some drinks? And I think that was always going to happen, a couple of flats mixing together. And of course, that's not within the rules of Warwick, or in fact within the laws, but I think that probably did happen last week. But I do worry, because that Freshers Week is so important. I look at my friends now, the people that I spend time with, and I met most of them that are in my year, either at a lecture or at society events, or on a radio show. I was on the panel with them and we had a discussion, and here we are all in our own rooms, and it's just not the same. So I do feel really, really sorry for them, and I just hope that they can get involved with, with RAW, with the Politics Society, with everything else that's going on, and have some sort of a normal academic year. But as we know, everything at the moment is so far from normal.
Yeah. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for coming on today. It's absolutely wonderful having you. And I hear Politics Event has an event coming up this week, or?
Yeah, we have. You're right. We have an academic event about just sort of what it's like studying politics at Warwick for people that are new. And then on Friday, it's sold out. Actually, we've booked loads of tables of 6 in Leamington, and we just give the freshers an opportunity to meet people, obviously socially distanced and completely safe. So that's taking place on Friday. But the academic event, I think, is Thursday. And of course, I'll be back on Friday with the Johnny Jenkins show from 3:00 as well.
Well, now that all the promos are done, Johnny, thank you for joining us. It's absolutely wonderful having you.
Thanks, Enoch. See you later, everybody.
Bye. Bye. I want to ask Josh and Edwin. You've both obviously, you're both obviously society execs. I want to come to you. I want to focus more on your perspective on this sort of thing. In particular, Society's Fair. How do you think Society's Fair went? Edwin, I'll start with you. What society are you in again? Just a reminder for everyone.
Hi, everyone who's watching. I'm an exec member of the International and European Law Society. So everyone who's watching, come and join us. We have some exciting events planned to go ahead. For term 1 and the rest of the year as well. Back to the Society Fair. I think from a society point of view, it was very difficult for us. So we, firstly, because the SU first said that we could have a sort of meet and engage system or platform that would allow us to FaceTime with anyone who wants to talk with us online, but that didn't work. That was eventually turned into an online chatting platform, which is obviously not ideal. And so we had to adopt. So we came up with the solution with a Teams link and having a member of exec sitting in the chat room waiting for people to come and chat with us. Now, some people did come. I think we had like 4 or 5 people for the whole day, but I think that just clearly shows that at the virtual Society's Fair, it wasn't working really well. Simply because, firstly, asking freshers to go online and look for societies and then go into an online chat with a complete stranger, I think for many people that's a step too much. They would rather chill in the kitchen with their friends that they have just met. And secondly, it's also difficult for us as an exec member as well, because we can't really reach out to as many people as we want. Not everyone, at least we didn't go on campus and try to talk to people or try giving out leaflets, giving out sweets and candies and gifts. That happened last year. That was really successful, but obviously this year it couldn't happen. So from the freshers' point of view, you can't really get to talk to as many societies or as many people as you want. And from the exec point of view, you can't reach as many people as you want as well. So I think the Society Fair wasn't successful at all. But obviously, it's a very difficult situation. We all had to adopt, and at least for our society, we did adopt pretty well. So we have to move all of our events online, which is actually quite difficult for the Law Society, because we have events such as mooting, which is basically set in a mock court. Imagine having a mock court online. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't work at all. But obviously, this now have to happen. We have to find a new solution around that. And we usually had shows, so mentoring socials, so we can actually pair senior students, year 2 and 3 students, to freshers and help them, guide them through the first year in Warwick. That have been successful for so many years, but this year, obviously, because of all the restrictions, that cannot happen as well. We had to move everything online. Signing up is online, meeting is online. So I think it's very difficult for both the freshers and the execs.
Yeah, thank you, Edwin. Josh, we spent the day together in Microsoft Teams, I think, on the
Yes.
Society's Fair. So I guess just like let's give a little quick quote on how you found the festival experience before we head on to an overall discussion of Warwick Online.
Okay, well, I spent 5 hours on the Society's Fair in our Teams call. I think most societies realised very quickly that this chat room wasn't going to work. So we set up a Teams call as well. I spent 5 hours on that, and I think I interacted with about 4 or 5 people in total. Now, obviously, I'm not going to have too much of a go at the student union because, I think there's an element of criticism and there's an element of saying this was going to happen when you had an online Society's Fair. So I think there's criticism of that sense because it affects all societies in every way. I mean, comparing a chat room where you type in a message to hope that there's an exec member there to answer your questions. Compare that to what I remember from the Society's Fair last year, where you are surrounded by societies that, yes, you don't know half of them. You won't know many of them. You probably are only there to see 1 or 2 that you looked up. But at least with that, there's like so many societies that would draw you in and to just get almost give you a pitch for joining the society. Here, it was you had to know the society beforehand and enter the chat room for specific questions. There was no expectation that a student would go through every single chat room in a single day. So I think in general, it was a slight failure in that it wasn't going to work logistically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just realized the entire back half hour of this show has been dominated by technical failures. So we're going to go to the creme, the piece de resistance of technical failures. Is Warwick ready for online learning? Now, I, like many of you, spent most of last Thursday? I feel like it was years ago now.
Don't remind us.
Battling with EVision to try and pick a module. It took me 2 hours. 2 hours to pick a module in such a method. That's how glitchy it was. Noah, I want to come to you. Is Warwick ready for online learning?
Well, clearly not if last Thursday and today are anything to go by. I mean, the worst thing was I somewhat predicted it the night before. I said to my housemates, if you're going to have 20,000 people logging into a system at the same time, trying to select their modules for the next academic year, with no staggering at all, everyone, regardless of year group, regardless of course, doing it at the same time, inevitably the servers are going to crash. And that is, of course, precisely what happened. It was an immense sense of sort of Groundhog Day and frustration at constantly trying to log in, being processed, being logged out again, the system being available and then unavailable. And it's clear it wasn't fit. It wasn't fit for purpose, for the purpose it was trying to create. I got there after about 90 minutes, but it was extremely frustrating, to see modules were or weren't there. And we had that to a lesser extent today with seminar sign up, where once the seminar timetable was released, I found it fairly straightforward to sign up, but it did take quite a while, and there wasn't very much clarity over what time precisely that would be released. So I think it has been a real shambles. There's been issues on Moodle trying to find different lectures. It's pleasing to have some sense of routine and security to know when I'll be going on to campus for seminars, but it is immensely frustrating given that we knew COVID was going to be a pandemic from March, so they've had almost from March until September to try and logistically sort this out, and it clearly hasn't worked, and it's students that are suffering.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I have to try and be neutral in this, but it's very hard to be neutral in the absolute disaster that I've been having for the last.
Very neutral.
Yeah, it's been. I feel like actually, as a news person, it's my job to sort of call out a church's failures. And what else can you describe this as but a horrific failure on the part of the university? Josh, I'll come to you. How's your experience of Warwick Online been so far?
Well, we've already mentioned EVision. It took me 3 hours to get all my modules signed up. Lots of error messages, lots of, oh, you've been logged out. Oh, there's an error. We can't process your request right now. Please exit the window and log back in. So 3 hours of that. And then also I had to sign up for my seminars today for PACE, for my politics modules, my 2 politics modules. And to see a message, to almost have a panic in myself when I was signing up for my Politics of Contemporary China seminar, to see that there was it said weeks 1 to 5, Mondays from 9 till 10. And I had a full-on panic thinking, wait, I've missed my first seminar already. And then to realize, oh, wait, no, it's fine. But if we have anything to go by with how EVision's working, is that the university hasn't fully considered the concept of trying to teach 20-odd thousand students all online. I mean, I see that there's obviously most of my seminars, they say, okay, can you have it in person, staggered 1 week online, or can you come in every week for seminars? So that sort of alleviates some of the pressure for online learning. However, if we're looking at an overall sense, I would say that the university is not prepared at all, even though they've had now 7 months, 6 or 7 months to prepare for this. And if EVision has anything to say for it, and if module sign-ups have anything to say about it, the university is just ill-prepared.
Now, while the university may not be prepared, it could be said that going online is now the only way. I mean, if we're looking at places like Northumbria University, which has 700 active cases among students and staff, maybe we have no choice but to go all online. Edward, I'll come to you.
Firstly, I haven't really experienced the whole model registration problem yet. I'm supposed to do that tomorrow. So after hearing what you guys have just said, I'm actually kind of worried right now.
Good luck, my friend. Good luck.
Yeah, I think online it's the only option right now. Given that, look at what happened in other unis campuses, so Manchester, Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Northumbria, you just mentioned. With that said, I think online learning is it will be also a test for all of us this year. So it's down to how self-motivated you are and how disciplined you are. Because I have done some lectures today on the Moodle side, and it's an absolute chaos. It's like entering your room, Enoch. It's just like a complete mess. You don't know where to look for
That's enough from Edwin. Anyway, that's enough from Edwin. My room is fine, in case anyone out there is wondering. He came in while I was tidying up. It doesn't count while I'm tidying up. That's a whole separate issue.
Hashtag awkward.
This is why you have your roommates on the show.
No, but,
it's a bad idea. Yeah.
It's just a mess. Loads of information all put on one page. Lecture slides, lecture PowerPoint, lecture notes, videos, introduction, online ethics, etiquettes, instructions for seminar. Everything was put in one page, and you just have to spend so much time navigating which is to find the right information that you actually need. So I think much of this year will be pretty much down to self-teaching and peer teaching. So, get yourself into study groups, get yourself a study partner, work together, discuss the topic together as you would have been on an actual in-person seminar, rather than relying on the online system, because it's simply not working at the moment. And having said that, that's exactly the reason why there should be a partial refund of the tuition fee.
That's the big question. I guess I'll put that to the panel. Do we think there should be a partial refund of the tuition fee?
Yes.
Yeah, there probably should be. I mean, I'm a supporter of tuition fees, which is probably quite an unusual thing for a student to say, but I think if you actually look at the argument for tuition fees, it is a progressive policy. But I support tuition fees on the basis of teaching being taught and teaching being of good quality. And it's clear that however much online learning or try, it can never replicate that in-person experience. And while many people may be lucky enough to find a study partner or whatever, many people are, sadly very socially isolated at university with or without a pandemic. And so lectures or seminars are the only real places for them to congregate and socialize with others. And so I think it's clear that for as long as possible, every university should try and keep teaching in person if they can, as much as possible for seminars, small groups. I think it is a really completely different experience. I know personally I'll concentrate far more for something that is in person, where I'm having to be attentive. I've made the effort to get on the U1 and arrive at campus, and if it's just online in my room where I'm just not as productive.
But the university, in fact, actually also teachers' unions are arguing that we should have a refund, because they think the amount of work you put in by your teaching staff is the same, if not more, for online experience.
Just to add to Noah's point, I think if there's no partial refund, I think perhaps we really should work on the possibility of in-person teaching. I think we should we should notice that one of the key difference between Warwick and the rest of universities, especially those who are having a huge outbreak at the moment, is that we're so far away from any cities. We're literally a campus in the middle of nowhere. So it is very easy for the uni to, limit the access to campus, limited to just to students and necessary staff, lecturers only, to create a safer environment for everyone. Then we can perhaps actually have a more in-person teaching at this term, following the government guideline. And it will also be a good idea to, have seminars that are fewer than 6 people. That's just move us closer to the Oxbridge tutorial system that will actually benefit the students and lecturers as well. So I think the uni should be aware that we're actually in a slightly different situation than most of the other unis who are in the middle of the city, and make the most out of the advantage and actually explore options of in-person teaching.
And I think we're going to have to start winding down here, but thank you all so much for coming on the show. Edwin, I believe you had something you wanted to plug on this show, which is why I offered you a exchange for coming on, so please plug away.
Oh, I was going to promote for my society. So whoever is watching, obviously we have worked very hard. Every society has worked very hard to adapt to the current situation. We have some virtual event planned for this week. We have one demo moot that's happening on Friday. So any students, any students who are interested in doing year abroad should come and watch that. Any law students who are watching the show, please do sign up to our mentoring scheme. It has been wonderful for the last few years, actually helped the freshers and the senior students as well. They all had a great time. So please do. And this is not just for our society, it's for everyone. It's for every society, with a few exceptions, I think. Every society on campus. All of the execs have worked so hard on adapting to the current situation, putting events online, virtual socials. Please do appreciate our effort and come and join our events, whether it's online or in person. We love your support.
Yeah, I just want to say Edwin does not represent the views of Raw News. We think every society is doing a great job moving online. I'm not going to kick anyone out of that list. Thank you.
Or the sports clubs.
But thank you, Noah. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Edwin. And thank you to the departed judge for coming on the show. It's been wonderful having you on today. And also thank everyone at home for watching the show. It's been absolutely great having you follow along. Insight is back next week at the same time. And also, if you want to come in and get involved in Raw News, please do join the Raw News Facebook group. It's in the link, in the description of this video. If you're on Twitter, it's in our bio of our Twitter account. Please, come and join in the show. Share your opinions with us. It's a really lovely time. But thank you all for watching. We will return next week.